Hello, and welcome to today's episode of EWiT Diamond. My guest today is Elaine Montilla, founder of 5X Minority. She's worked in higher education for 17 years before moving to her new role in the corporate world. She loves traveling and has visited over 30 countries. Elaine is originally from the Dominican Republic and now lives in New York with her dog Nola. Welcome, Elaine. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Holly.
It's a pleasure. Elaine, I want to start a little bit with your personal story. You've had such a remarkable journey from the Dominican Republic and now being here, having these trailblazing roles that you carry both in the corporate world and also as a founder of your own startup. And I wanted to just ask you, can you share maybe some key moments or experiences along that journey? And particularly in the context, anything that stands out of being a minority woman in the tech industry?
Yeah, that is so interesting. I love that question. I'll start by sharing that I was born and raised, like you mentioned, in the Dominican Republic, and I moved to the US. I moved here to New York, where I'm based. When I was 17 years old, I came here to go to college. My mom wanted a better future for us. And so I went into college not speaking English, and I had to take a lot of ESL courses. So you can imagine some of the struggles that I dealt with early on. I was learning a new language. That was a challenge. Learning about a new culture, never seen snow before in my life. But I was really fortunate that I had family here with me and I had supportive teachers and mentors that helped me along the way. Thinking about defining moments, I can tell you that being a woman and choosing a tech career is the first time where I actually noticed that I was the only one in the classroom, probably one of two women, or maybe the only one. And that's when the realization came that, I know that we needed more representation because I couldn't see myself in the positions that I was looking at in the moment. I can think of a second moment being when I delivered my TEDx talk. I think it was the first time that I realized that my voice actually mattered and that I could use it and that I could make a difference in the world. Being a woman in tech, I wanted to share my experience and I wanted to make sure that other women can see themselves reflected in me and my story. And it served in a way as like a validation. And that's one of the reasons I actually started 5X Minority. And then the third moment that really shaped my life was founding 5X Minority. I think that it allowed me to empower other communities that needed help and serve as an advocate for them. My journey has been a tough one. I saw myself in rooms where I was the only one. I used to make myself small so that I can fit in and go unnoticed because that's what we're told growing up. And so knowing that I can make a difference and that I can create content to educate others who need help, has been really rewarding.
That's incredible, Elaine. What a wonderful kind of trifecta of moments that you've pulled there. I want to go back to the first one that you shared about of starting college, not speaking English, learning the new language and the new culture at the same time. And you mentioned drawing support from your family, but one thing that really comes up for me when you tell that story is how uncomfortable of an experience that is. And I wanted to ask you, through that experience or others, how did you learn to build a tolerance for discomfort and that space where you're learning something, you want to achieve something and you're not there yet? That's a very uncomfortable space to be in, but that's also the only space that we grow from, right? So tell me a little bit about that. How did you kind of cultivate that tolerance for discomfort?
Yeah. Oh my God, Holly. It really took a while. It was not easy. I remember going into rooms and silencing myself because I had such a strong accent that I can notice that people were staring at my lips when I would talk to them. And I would feel embarrassed that people couldn't understand the words coming out of my mouth. So I spent a lot of years actually being very quiet and not contributing a lot. Um, I think a lot of it changed for me through my mentors. And that's one of the reasons why I spend a lot of time mentoring the next generation, because I can see the difference that it made in my life. Still today, I have two mentors that I love and admire, and they are the ones who help me see myself in positions where I couldn't see myself. Usually they would tell me, Elaine, you're ready for the next promotion, where I was not even thinking about it because I was so focused on doing my best. When you're a minority and you're in rooms where you're the only one, you focus on working really hard to make sure that people notice you, because it's very easy to become invisible in places like that, especially when you're a shy child, which I was for many years. I think my determination came from not focusing on me and focusing on other people. I think it became easier for me when I stopped making it about myself. It's a huge thing that I share with a lot of young girls today. I was so focused on the way I looked and making sure that I could fit in with other groups, that the fear was always there. And when I learned to change my focus and make it about who else can benefit from this, how can I share my wisdom so that the next Latina doesn't have to go through the things that I went through, that's when it became easier. And it only came with practice. I went into a lot of meetings where I was very scared to speak up in a room full of, the president. And I remember at the university being with the provost and the head of a department. And I felt very scared. And I just had to tell myself, okay, Elaine, the feeling is there. It's not going anywhere. Just let it be there. And I had to constantly talk to myself. Okay, Elaine, here's another one. It's scary, but nothing will happen. Just go through and it will be there. And I did that enough times, especially when I was learning public speaking. I think that that's one of the things that helped me the most, because I learned how to be on a stage and I learned how to make a mistake and kind of come up with like a new idea to come out of that problem that I had. And so I think public speaking really helped a lot with that.
What an incredible skill set, like a life skill, right? Because you can use that on a stage, you can use that in a meeting, but also in your personal life, like that ability to just be with the feeling, pivot when something goes wrong. That's amazing. And it almost sounds like those voices of those mentors that were telling you, hey, I see something in you. You
Yeah.
got to the point that you had to internalize that, where you saw that in yourself, and that kind of ability to self-talk. That's just incredible, Elaine. Thank you for sharing. But now I want to ask you, you're clearly so passionate about 5X Minority. So before I ask you about it, tell us, what is it? How did it start? What's the mission? And
Yeah.
you can like hear the passion dripping from your tongue. Talk about it. So
it's
tell us
my
the
baby,
story.
Holly. It's my baby.
I can
I,
see
I
that.
I always tell people that I have two things. I have my career as a CTO working in the ed tech space, and I have my passion, which is 5X Minority. And 5X Minority came out of my desire to help elevate the voices and underrepresented minorities in the tech field. So mostly women, because my content mostly relates to them, but it's open to everyone. We don't discriminate here. It actually came out of my own experiences navigating the tech industry as a minority, as a woman, as a Latina, as a member of the LGBTQ community. If you think about titles, I have so many of them. And I remember people trying to figure out what to do with me, because normally if you say, oh, I'm a Latina, they put you in a box. And they put all these things around you because you said you're Latina. And then when they learn that I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, they put me in another box. And I'm like, well, let's play. Let's play. Let's see how many boxes you can put around me. So 5X Minority came out of that. At that time, I was thinking about the 5 things that label me as a minority. Now it's more than 5. But when I created the company, it was 5X. It was the 5 things that made me a minority during that time. And I really wanted a space to empower other women, to advocate, to educate communities. And the final push came, as I mentioned earlier, after delivering my TEDx talk. I started getting so many emails and so many messages. And I can tell you, Holly, I was crying reading the messages from other women who often said, oh my God, I can relate to everything you were saying. And I am so glad that I'm not the only one who's struggling with this, that I'm not the only one who feels invisible, that I'm not the only one that needs to sit in a corner because I don't see myself in the room, that I'm not the only one who struggled with imposter syndrome, which I still do today because it doesn't go away 100%, but now I have the tools to deal with it. And I think that that's a passion. That's just something that's inside of me. Even if I wanted to, I have no way of not doing it. I love education so much, and education is so important to me that I don't want to spend time blaming people. I want to help people educate themselves, especially male allies, so that they can understand how important it is for them to help us and how much we as women need their support.
I got goosebumps just hearing about, the impact that you had just from your talk. And it seems like that really kind of woke something up inside you to spread that message and take it further and reach more people that are maybe feeling alone and marginalized. And I just want to ask you, tell us a little bit more about how does it operate? You know, it seems like the impact is so clear of people just feeling seen, of feeling not alone, of allies becoming educated on what to do. But tell us a little bit about like what is a day in the life for 5X Minority? How are you connecting with people?
Yes, it varies. It's different each day. One day could be just creating content. If you go to 5X Minority on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you can see that we spend a lot of time creating content to educate people. We have a new series called AI at Work, and we want to make sure that people get the tools that they need so that they can do their work. For example, this week I'm posting a message on how to find a job using AI and what are the tools that I can use to go through an interview process, for example. I also do a lot of fireside chats because I want to make sure that people can hear my story, relate to it, learn from it, and share some of the advice and the wisdom that I've learned over the years. A few years ago, I did a campaign with Cadillac for LGBTQ month. And so it was a great opportunity for me to share how we support the LGBTQ community and for me to be a face to help my community in a way. I do sometimes workshops with private companies and a lot of public speaking. That's where most of my time goes. But remember, Holly, I have a full-time job. And so this is not something that happens every day.
Of course.
And then last but not least, I love writing. I was in the one of the groups for Forbes, and I have a lot of articles that I've posted there. And if you go to the blog at 5X Minority, you can see my passion there. I write poetry as well, and everything that I write is connected to a social cause. I'm very intentional about the things that I'm writing about, and I'm hoping that I can reach a bigger audience through that or a podcast like this one.
Well, listen, for sure, we need to get the links for all the channels where you're active, and we're going to share them as part of the post when we launch the podcast. So
Awesome.
get this message out. That's absolutely incredible. And I want to say thank you for doing this work, how important it is, how many lives you're touching. And thank you for being our guest today. And I'm kind of like letting us amplify that. You know, something that I really want to ask you about, Elaine, because it's something that I personally have wrestled with a lot and put a lot of thought into how to make things better. When we work in tech, we hire a lot, right? We hire probably more than other professions are able to hire right now. And knowing how important that, I don't even want to say diversity and inclusion, right? That's kind of, it falls flat for me now when I hear diversity and inclusion. I think what I hear from you is so much richer and broader than what a lot of companies mean when they say D&I, right? Like, okay, there's that little initiative over there. You're talking about making people feel seen and finding their hidden talents that aren't shining and educating everyone around on how to bring that out in people. So knowing how central that is to your mission, to who you are, you know, both in your professional role and through your advocacy efforts, how do you approach that within your teams in your full-time job and in the broader tech community? What are the strategies that you have found most effective in driving meaningful change?
Yeah, I love this. And like I mentioned earlier, this is such a part of me that any company that hires me knows that they're getting that. Because I come in a package, one package, not a box, but a full package. Fostering inclusivity, I'll just say it that way. It really starts for me with creating a culture where everybody feels seen and valued and heard, like you said. And so within my teams, I really prioritize open communication. I prioritize always looking for different perspectives. It's funny, I made a decision last week and I sent a message to my VP and I was like, I made this decision, but I really want to hear what you think about it. And you could disagree with me. I've been wrong in the past. And so it's just me creating the space where they can feel comfortable saying, you know what, Elaine, I don't agree with that. And let me tell you why. And that takes a long time. I think a lot of leaders don't understand how much time you have to invest in creating the space where people feel safe saying that. So my first year working at this company, I had scheduled virtual chats every Friday, just as an example, because I wanted to make sure that people can come in and talk to me. I hate it when people see the title CTO or CIO, and I was a CIO before coming here. and they feel like it's 20 layers above and disconnected from them. And so for me, the virtual Fridays for a whole year served as an open door, as an invitation for them to come in. I don't care what title you have, come inside one-on-one with me and let's talk. How
Mm,
are you? What do you do? And how can I help you?
mm.
Um, the other thing that I do is I send an email every month. It's titled Monthly Updates from the CTO. And I share what's happening. I share, at the end, I share my favorite tech talk or a podcast that I'm listening to. So I try to make it fun. I try to make it fun for them. I also have to meet every new hire. There is no new hire coming to my technology team without meeting with me for 30 minutes. I
Wow.
want to know who's coming in. I want them to know me. I want them to know that they can contact me on Messenger anytime without thinking that I'm 20 layers above them. And I also am a member of a lot of boards and ERG groups within the company, and I try my best to share my knowledge as often as I can. I don't have a lot of free time, Holly, as you can see, but I really try, partnering with all the groups and trying to see how we can help each other. And then in terms of diversity and inclusion, I really believe in serving as a role model and allowing them to see me do the work. I don't think I need to tell them what to do. They see it when we have a meeting. They see me asking for additional feedback. They see me sharing that I need help and that they are the leaders that I need help from. And so it really, I think in a summary, if I can give you a summary, it's being comfortable sharing your vulnerability, which I think
Mm.
is so difficult for so many people. And I think my spiritual practice and meditation and journaling really has helped me be so comfortable and understand how valuable it is for people to see me the way I am. And, thinking about it, I also want to add that you want to make sure that the space is safe for you to be yourself. I hear people saying be yourself everywhere. Sometimes it's not safe to be yourself, especially for me as a member of the LGBTQ community. So I want to acknowledge that also, that it's sometimes not safe for everyone to do that. But as the leader of the team, I mean, I'm there for them. I tell them, you don't work for me, I work for you. Tell me what's the obstacle you have that I need to help you remove. And so fostering that culture for the past almost 2 years has been incredible. And I have an amazing team today.
Oh, I can only imagine, this kind of culture that you're talking about. And I'm sure the leaders that have kind of been drawn to you and working under that direction, they must be very, very strong and inspiring people as well.
I hope so. It's not always perfect. I'm not
Never.
trying to say that it's perfect. It's not. And we have our times where we have to have uncomfortable conversations, but that's also part of the job.
Yeah. Elaine, something that you mentioned there really is sticking out to me about how
Mhm.
much time that takes to create that culture. And I think you're right, because it's not, nobody is coming to a job with a blank slate, right? Everyone is coming with their past experiences. And sadly, a lot of the time that means that we don't really feel safe to fully show up and fully be
Yep.
ourselves. So you mentioned some of the things that you do. You specifically ask for feedback. You specifically call out that it is a safe place for them to be their whole selves. And then the other thing that I heard is just a lot of intentionality.
Mhm.
So for myself personally, I'm a VP now. And what I realize as I start to kind of climb and get that is that these C levels that are inaccessible, they're not doing it because they think they're better than everyone else. They're doing it because they just forget that they have to be intentional about creating that space, right? And it
Mm.
sounds like you really have been so intentional about creating these channels and saying, I'm here, I'm available, I'm a human being beyond the title. And I'm wondering, was that modeled to you, or is that something that is uniquely yours?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first I want to say that I think the fact that I am so comfortable knowing that I'm imperfect, it's what helps me do that. Because for many years, I feel like we've shared this persona of someone in the C-suite who has all the answers, who knows everything. And I can tell you that when I was first promoted to a CIO, I was working at the City University of New York. I was in a panic mode my first week because I thought that I had to have all the answers. And I was like, oh my God, these people are so much smarter than me. And they're going to come to me with questions and I won't have the answers. And I'm going to give credit to one of my mentors and to my spiritual practice. all the books that I've read, all the retreats that I've attended, help me feel comfortable knowing that I am not perfect and that it is okay to not have all the answers. And so I think whenever someone comes to me, I can tell you 10 years ago, if I didn't have the answers, I would panic. And
Mm.
today, if I don't have the answer, it's so comfortable for me to say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that, but let me follow up and I'll get back to you. It's just knowing that it is okay to not be perfect because no one else is. The other thing you will probably notice, Holly, as you move up the ladder, is that when we look up, we see people, we create like a mental image of what people are doing. And when you move up and you enter the C-suite, you start to realize that everyone is just like you. And everyone is insecure and everyone goes through imposter syndrome and everyone it's nervous right before the meeting starts. And I think when you see that, you start to realize that it is okay for you to be that way too. And then for me, it is okay for other people to see it.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of any of that because if I was, I mean, that's what makes me a human being. So I think, yeah, my mentors, my spiritual practice, meditating every morning really helps me be ready for the day. I can tell you
Absolutely.
the days I don't meditate, I can see it in the middle of the day where I'm like, oh, I need a break. Let me go out for a walk.
Elaine, I love that. And I think what is so incredible to me about this is that you're intentionally humanizing the
Mm.
C-suite. And in the tech
It's
world,
about time, don't you think?
oh, somebody needs to. I agree. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now let's talk a little bit about the tech world, right? And how things play out sometimes in a tech landscape. And on the more hard skills side, how are you equipping your team, right? So you've created
Mm.
this incredible culture. How are you now helping your team to stay ahead of the curve and making sure that they have the skills and the knowledge and that they're able to navigate emerging technologies and trends without losing sight of those values that make
Yeah.
you who you are, that make your team who they are.
Yeah, I can tell you it's not easy. I'll start with that. Because I've worked in education, it's easier for us, I think, because we work in education. So it's something that it's embedded in us all the time. But it's not easy because life gets very busy and hectic, especially now with AI technology. There is this rush of doing things really fast, and it's difficult to find time to do some of that during the day. I always encourage my teams to stay curious, and I think that's the key. It's not I want to be the best and I want to know everything about it. No, be curious and ask yourself the first question. Oh, I wonder what's an LLM. Oh, I don't even know what it stands for. Why don't I go and find out? There is this workshop. Let me just sign up for this. So I'm always asking about, and we have yearly reviews, and I always make sure that there is a line item for professional development because I know that that's what I do for myself. So we have a lot of resources internally. There are a lot of ongoing training and workshops, and I myself just finished a class at MIT for AI in the digital transformation. And so I also model that same behavior. That I'm not an AI expert. I don't think any of us are. And so let me go and take this class to show you that I'm going to do the same thing that I'm asking you to do.
Mm.
Um, I just completed a course on LinkedIn Learning about AI and HR because people and technology are my two passions. So there's nothing better than that. It was a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. And so we have a portal with a lot of information available to them, and we create KPIs and goals for the team so that they can take on training. But it's not as easy as it sounds. You have to, like you said, be intentional and make time for it. And for us, you have to prioritize what's happening this week. I'm delivering this big project, and so maybe I'm not able to do any of that this week, but maybe next week on a Friday, I'm going to take an hour. We have to be very intentional because time can go by very fast. And next thing you know, the year went by and you didn't learn anything. So reminders and emails from the CTO and emails from each manager, we try to make sure that we can remind them of them because they're very busy.
You know what I really love about that, Elaine? It kind of is full circle, right? I'm imagining, you as a young woman and you're starting college, you don't speak the language, you're learning the
Mm.
culture and like Now, here you are, CTO, a founder, you're encouraging your team to get right into that space of uncomfortability, of growth, of stretching themselves and curiosity. And it speaks also to what you shared about, okay, maybe I don't have the answers, but I have curiosity. I have resourcefulness.
Right.
I have grit to go and find out. And I think that's just so lovely. Like you've done it. And so now you can say, hey, people, it's doable.
Yeah.
It's doable. Follow
Or
me. This is
also,
so
I
doable.
have friends. I think sometimes we don't speak enough about the power of networking, and I could not do everything I do alone. I could not learn everything I learn on my own. And so I spend a lot of time networking, connecting with other peers, asking my friends for opinions, sharing information with them. I think that you cannot do this work on your own because you would just burn out.
Yeah.
And especially because this is Mental Health Awareness Month, I want to share that you have to make sure that you take some time to take care of yourself. For me, meditation, taking walks in the middle of the day, it's important. And I share the same thing with my teams. I don't know if they listen. I still share it. And so, yes, I think it's important to pay attention to what's happening today and who can I ask for help. Sometimes I ask my employees for help because there is also reverse mentorship where I'm learning a lot from them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's such an underrated source of strength and wisdom, isn't it? When we get to ask the leaders underneath us.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, gosh, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, Elaine, and hearing a little bit about your leadership. I want to ask you one more question before we kind of end on a more fun and personal note. So
Mhm.
let's talk. We've talked a little bit about your team. We've talked about the way you create culture. We've talked about the way you help them stay educated and ahead of the curve with emerging technology. Let's like broaden out a little bit and talk about the field of IT leadership. So you have over 20 years of experience in IT leadership, and you've witnessed, right, these kind of significant shifts that are taking place in the tech landscape. And I'm curious, how have you seen these values of diversity, of inclusion, how have you seen them evolve within the industry? And then
Mm.
the advice, what would you have for steps that organizations can take to create these more equitable kind of cultures and opportunities?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely been a roller coaster over the past few years. I feel like we're still in it right now. And I think sometimes we get too hooked on the names and titles of things. And that's why I like to label everyone as human being instead of all these other titles that we want to give people. Um, I I really think that there is a broader understanding today of diversity teams. I spoke about that in my TEDx talk. I think we now see the value of having different thinking at the table, people who speak different languages. I am an example. I went from feeling ashamed to having an accent to feeling so proud that I speak more than a language today because I know how my brain processes things in a different way that's helpful to any company and any team. Um, I also know that we can be better. I think that if you look at the statistics, I think it was when I did my TEDx talk, it showed 40% of women leave tech after 10 years. I think it's 50% now, which is really scary. And the reason that women are leaving is because of the lack of support and mentorship. And so Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. And I feel like we know better now. We need to do better and take action. And so implementing unbiased hiring practices is a good start. I don't know if it has happened to you in the past, but going into an interview where everybody looks the same, it's a bit uncomfortable nowadays, knowing where we are today because we want to see ourselves represented. And also because of the bias that comes from people who look the same asking you questions, we need to make sure that we focus on the skills and not on liking someone or the way they look. And so it's important to have a process that we can follow where everybody gets asked the same questions and we have a matrix where we can link the skills to that individual. Creating sponsorship programs and mentorship programs is important. I think we spend a lot of time talking about mentorship and not enough time talking about sponsorship. a lot of Latinas that I talk to feel over-mentored by now, and it's
Yeah.
not helping them move forward in their career because they need someone who can sponsor them and share their names in rooms that they don't have access to.
Mm.
And so we need to spend more time doing that. And then making sure that we foster in places that are inclusive, where people can feel comfortable being themselves. I can tell you that before anyone knew that I was a member of the LGBTQ community, I felt like I had two personas. I was like Elaine outside of work, and whenever I opened those doors, there was another version of Elaine that would walk into the workplace. And I was not myself 100%. And so I couldn't contribute 100%, which is not helping the company in the end.
Mm.
And so knowing that I could be myself now, it's so liberating because it was exhausting to try to show another version of me to a group of professionals that I was working with. So I think that's a huge example. I think having a culture of continuous learning, to come full circle,
Yeah. Yeah.
also helps a lot. I'm working with a few boards that I am a member of, and we're trying to find ways to educate men. I think that's one of my focuses this year. I want to write more about it. I feel that allyship is so important, and we need to have more men at the table understanding the benefits of diversity, the benefits of having a woman, the benefits of, even when it comes to public speaking, having a diverse set of human beings on stage, which I still don't see today. So we have work to do, and that will keep us busy, but I'm hopeful, and I know that each one of us can do a little bit, a little bit. I know sometimes we'll wait for somebody else to do it, but just try to do a little bit today. You'll see how it contributes.
And I think that everyone sees a little bit different piece of the puzzle and find their own way to contribute, right? And so
Right.
I want to share with you because I just I'm so reinvigorated from my personal mission in our conversation. But what we're doing at Dot Design, which is the creative services arm of Avenue Code, we cover all things design, whether that's, traditional UX research and product design, or whether it goes all the way down to visual and creative design. Why? For me, I feel like designers are the people that are shaping the digital world. And regardless how I personally feel about it, people are spending more and more time in the digital world. So what do we do to make the digital world inclusive and accessible and equitable? Well, the designers shouldn't all look the same and they shouldn't all think the same, right? So for us, the whole mission behind starting Dot Design was, how do we take designers or potential designers from marginalized communities who historically have not had their voice heard? And how do we bring them in, get them whatever training they need, mentor them, give them the coaching, and then plug them into our client portfolio, right? Where we're so privileged, we're working with members of the Fortune 100, and we can match these really values-driven, ethical, diverse designers with huge global brands. And whether the decisions they're making is like curating photography or it's a micro interaction, that's a different perspective that's getting brought to the table. So I hear you, and that's
Yeah.
gonna how each industry or each leader is doing it is gonna look a little different. But it sounds like you're saying look at what look at where you see
Yes.
and find a way to leverage that.
100%. I think sometimes we look at other people and what they're doing, and we see how big it is, and it's intimidating. But if you step back and look at what you're doing, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, then think about that small step that you can take to contribute. And it feels like nothing. But over time, I can tell you, I was posting for 5X Minority for a while and no one was paying attention. And
Mhm.
that's okay, because to me, being of service is more important than any recognition. The podcast, all of that is beautiful. But I know that in the end, when I look at little Elaine growing up in the Dominican Republic, that's the person that I want to help. And so start small, even if it's starting a blog, just start a blog and start writing about the things you've learned, because any little bit counts. And you'll be surprised at the people that are reading the things that you're writing. And I learned that myself after a year and a half of creating content.
Thank you, Elaine. I feel like it just has been such a refreshing conversation, so reinvigorating. I'm
I'm so
really
happy.
such a delight. And I think now let's wrap up with something a little fun, okay?
Okay.
So I want to ask you, I have so many questions after our After I
I
finish,
may not have the answer.
but you have curiosity. So let's do this. I want to do kind of like a speed round of getting to know you. I'm gonna
Okay.
ask you for your favorite X, right? Your favorite book, whatever it is. We're gonna go through a few categories and let's give ourselves like, I don't know, 60 seconds. So let's see, I'm gonna set a timer here. Let's see how
Okay,
many.
awesome. I'm scared now.
Okay, don't be scared. Take a deep breath. All right, Elaine, what is your favorite podcast?
Yes, pivot. Pivot
Good.
with Kara Swisher.
Okay, great. What is your favorite meditation?
Oh, wow. Oh my God, that's a difficult question. I have so many. I recently started learning about breath work. And
Mm,
so I'm experimenting breath work and how I feel when I do it in the morning and when I do it before going to bed. So I'm going to say for now, because I'm so curious about it, I'll say breath work.
amazing. Okay. How about your favorite country you've ever visited?
Yes, people will get mad at me. My favorite country is Cambodia. The en-
Cambodia.
I believe in energy, and the energy that I felt there, my goodness, I could live there. I could move there tomorrow. Definitely
Wow.
Cambodia.
Cool. All right. Got to circle back to that one. What about your favorite flower? Do you have a favorite flower?
Oh gosh, I do not. I do not.
Okay. All right. We ran out of time already, but let me ask you one, no, two more. I just have to know.
Okay.
Favorite book?
Oh, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I
Okay.
read it every year.
I'm gonna have to add that one on my list.
Yes.
And last of all, favorite quote.
Oh, wow. Yes. So his name is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
There's a lot there. That's
I know, I can talk about
beautiful.
that for hours.
Yeah, me too. Listen, it just has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us as a guest. This was personally such a pleasure to get to know you, and I hope it won't be our last conversation. Thank you for being with us, Elaine. Any closing thoughts that you want to add?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for creating the space for us to use our voices. I want to leave you with knowing that if you go into a room where you're the only one, it's mandatory that you stay. It's mandatory that you stay because you're opening doors for other people who may look like you and will not have access to those rooms. So thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And for all
Thank
you
you.
listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll speak with you next time.